Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to, the Potter Podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. And man, I've got a great topic for you guys to discuss today as we're going to be talking about just what to look for in a market. And especially as things change and can change rapidly, these are the things that we want to really see and look for. As you are watching a real estate market. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's dive into this and kind of discuss how we arrived here at this discussion. And let's go ahead and dive in. So, just recently, like I'd been having quite a few conversations with people about our market here in Omaha, Nebraska. And so, we were kind of dialoguing, going back and forth, and talking about things that we were seeing and things that are changing in our market and all this stuff. And so it made me start thinking about, well, these are probably things that people ought to know. These are probably things that people should think about and should start watching as it takes place in our market. And so I wanted to take the time to really just dive into a couple of these things and talk to you about them. So if you're just joining us, if you've been watching us for a while, here's what I've been saying all along. And I said real estate's an interesting industry because you can have a lot of things happening in real estate, and you can have some things stay consistent. You can have some things drastically change what seems like sometimes overnight. And so with that being said, is one of those things that we're constantly watching and observing and things like that is obviously like traffic on our houses, and then also not only like the showings and the things like that, but then how many offers we're getting on those properties and how long is it taking to get offers on those properties and all that kind of stuff. And so I can honestly say, today is August 24th, and we have seen a drastic shift, I would say, like in our market, at least from, listing standpoint and showing standpoint and what we've been seeing with our team, as far as just the market slowing down a little bit. Now, I think there's a couple things that play into that, right? Like we are now like back to school. And so you've got a lot of families that have their kids plugged back into schools. And so they're not really looking at moving until probably the end of the school year, right? Because they don't want to take their kids out in the middle of school and all that kind of stuff, which is understandable. So we see that every year as far as when August kind of comes, you see things kind of slow down a little bit there because there's less buyers and families out there on the market. But then you also see what I like to tell my buyers that don't have families. So if I'm working with a single person, couples, all that kind of stuff, and they're not affected by schools and kids going back to school, now's the time to get back into the buying, if you will, with this market and with how crazy it was like in the spring and in the summer. So I think there was a lot of buyers that were exhausted and tired and all that kind of stuff as it relates to the way this past spring and summer went, when you're getting 20-25 offers on properties, and you're doing that time in and time out, and you're trying to put in your aggressive best offer, and you're not getting accepted. I think that can be exhausting, right? And so you've got those buyers I'm going back to right now, and I'm saying, hey, things have slowed down. Let's jump back into the mix and let's go try to find something, because now we're seeing that we're maybe competing with 1, 2, or 3 offers and not 20 or 30. So that puts us in a better position to do that. And so that's something that you need to learn and know too, as the seasons and times kind of change as well. There's stuff that we see every year, and then there's stuff that we don't see every year. That's on like a daily basis, weekly basis. And so I'm going to take you through 3 things that I think you can watch for as it relates to just your market and if you're a buyer or seller. And one of those first things is we had talked about like when things start to plateau, right? So I would say right now in the Omaha market, right now where we stand as of today, I feel like things have kind of plateaued out. Okay, again, some of that has to do with the timing and kids going back to school and whatever. But I think things have started to come back down and we're seeing those things. Okay, so for example, with new construction, right? Like in the spring and in the summer, we were starting to see all of these things like rise, and all these building costs were going up, and labor costs and material costs and all this stuff, right? And now we've started to see a lot of that start to trickle and come down a little bit more. So like lumber was crazy high, right? Lumber was crazy high. That's all we heard about was the lumber prices, blah, 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 all this stuff like continuing to rise. Well, now we've started to see those lumber costs start to come back down. We're coming back down to reality, right? So what I would say is by watching one of those, which I'm going to talk about as the number 2 thing, is as you watch some of these things, then you begin to see them plateau out, right? And usually we'll see them plateau out. And then you'll see them rise up again and then plateau out, and then usually rise up again and plateau out. Okay, that's kind of what we start seeing. That's what we observe, right? So a really good real estate agent is going to be observing the plateaus, right? So like, where are we at in this market? What about showings? What about offers? All that stuff. So those things right now, in my opinion, have started to plateau out, right? So we're no longer seeing the 15, 20, 30 offers that we were seeing in the spring and in the summertime. That's just not happening. What we're starting to see is maybe 1 to 5 to 6 offers on some of our properties that we're listing. And so that is a drastic change from spring to summer, right? So I would say that we've started to maybe plateau out there a little bit. Houses are starting to sit a little bit longer than usual. You're not getting an offer in 24 to 48 hours in some cases. You're sometimes waiting a week or 2 before you're getting that. So the shift has happened. The plateau has begun. And so that I think is good for all of us because now it gives buyers another chance to get back out into the market. Sellers need to relax and calm down. Your house is still going to sell if it's sell ready, right? If it's list ready, and what I've talked about before in previous podcasts, you want your house to be move-in ready. If there's things you need to fix, go do that because that's going to help you sell a lot quicker, especially now that things have started to kind of plateau, okay? My next thing that I'm talking about is like bubbles, okay? You start seeing little bubbles. I just spoke about a little one here a little bit ago with a new construction, but you start watching a lot of those little bubbles take place. So you're watching like what's happening in new construction, what's happening in commercial, what's happening in residential, what's happening with a lot of these other things that are taking place within our market, what's happening with the economy, right? Like, so you're watching a lot of these different things and you're starting to see how that plays into effect to people going out and buying houses and people trying to sell their houses, okay? So again, a good real estate agent is watching those little bubbles and they're observing. And so a big one, like we've been talking about, was new construction. And so we started watching that new construction has gone down tremendously as far as not only like I wouldn't say the cost per se, but I would say like just the amount of people that were looking at new construction. I saw in a recent report earlier, I think it was like down 9% or something like that. And so you're starting to see, and in that report it was talking about how people are preferring to go with pre-existing now over new construction because of how high those costs were. Now, I think we're going to start seeing that shift again, kind of come back down as soon as some of these prices come back down below. But I can't tell you like how crazy this summer got, you know, like as I was watching just houses, even in our neighborhood, right? Like I was watching houses go up in our neighborhood and sometimes those were $200,000, $300,000 more than what I know me and my neighbors were paying for their house just 3 years ago. And so you're watching that take place and you're like, wow, this is crazy. It helps us for like our home values, right? But it also sets the bar really high now moving forward. And, you know, as you look at how appraisers go and appraise these houses and do all that other stuff, like I am thanking God I'm not an appraiser right now because you're having to deal with a lot of those things. And as construction costs then start coming down a little bit more, are builders going to make that adjustment, or are they going to try to pocket the rest of that or try to compete with what they've sold in the past, right? Because they know that if they come down on price and all those different things, like that could affect the neighborhoods and the appraisal price and all those other things, right? So they want to try to keep those at the same levels. So you just got to start watching some of those things. Those are questions that you want to be asking your real estate agent, as far as like, not just what's happening with houses in your neighborhood, but what's happening nationally, what's happening regionally, what's happening within our city as it relates to new construction, as it relates to commercial buildings. Like right now I'm telling everybody I know, like if you're looking for a commercial space, now's the time to do it, especially with the way COVID has been and we're going like in the future here. Like a lot of people, and statistically we're seeing this, are working from home. And so what does that mean? Well, a lot of these businesses no longer need the space for commercial space. So now a lot of these commercial spaces, if you drive around Omaha, I see it all the time. Like I drive around Omaha and there are a ton of commercial spaces that are now empty. So if you're looking for a space, like now may be the time to get into a commercial space. So again, it's all these things that you want to be looking for, watching. How is the market? How is the economy playing into it? Like obviously, COVID, and it played into the way commercial spaces have obviously opened up. And so, there's many different factors that can come into play when it is looking for a specific need that you have in real estate. Okay, so you've got like the little bubbles, right? So I've talked about the bubbles, I've talked about the plateauing, and then the last thing I want to talk about is the adapt and change, right? So we talk about this all the time as agents. Like you have to be willing to adapt and change to the market conditions because they can change overnight, right? And I've been saying this over and over again is that, there's a lot of people that think that you can go get your real estate license and selling real estate is easy. That's far from the truth, okay? Like, are there times where it's easier than others? Yes, there are times where it's easier than others. But that doesn't mean that being in this industry is easy, right? It takes a lot of work. You can go ask any of my agents that came onto my team, okay? You can ask any brand new agent, is real estate easy? They're soon gonna come to find out that like, real estate isn't as easy as it looks, right? Like it's easy to stick a sign in the yard, right? Like anyone can go stick a sign in the yard, but can someone negotiate really well? Can someone bring buyers to the table when there is a house for sale? Does everyone have experience with some of the bad real estate agents out there that can give advice as far as like, hey, don't do a deal with that person because I've had horrible experiences with them. There's other things that come into play with it. Lenders, brokers, all this other stuff to be knowledgeable about and what you want as it relates to those things. And so I think a lot of people always look at, the dollar figure, right? If you're going to sell your house, you're always like, well, how can we save the most amount of money? Listen, what a real estate agent does, what a really good real estate agent does, some of you may not have heard me say this before, but what a really good real estate agent will do will maximize the equity in your house. Okay, let me say that again. He will maximize, or she will maximize the amount of equity in your house. What does that mean? They're gonna get you the most that they possibly can for that house. How are they gonna do that? Well, obviously, marketing and advertising is gonna help with that. But a lot of the things that people don't think about is the relationships that they have with other agents and the relationships they have with other clients and the experience and knowledge that they have when it comes to negotiating deals, okay? Because if you get 8 offers on your property, let's say you get 5 offers on your property, how do you know what offer to take? How do you know which one's the best? A lot of people think, well, easy, just look at the price. That isn't necessarily the best offer that's on the table, okay? There's other things that come into play when it relates to that thing. And so if you think that you can just go out there and do it yourself, by all means, you have the power to do so, but I would highly recommend not to do it. And statistics tell us that if you do try to go that route, you're losing money. And there's a reason why you're losing money, because most people will bite at that first offer that comes in, or most people will just be like, oh, we just want to get rid of it, and they get rid of it, but they don't realize that they could have maximized more equity as it relates to that property. Okay, so that is the thing that you need to be completely aware of, is adapting and changing, right? And so pivoting. If you have an agent, you want to be talking to that person about, what are you seeing that's changing in our market right now? What are you doing to pivot and change in your own business to benefit the seller or the buyer in this market? And they should be able to start speaking into those things. And so those are the things that you want to be thinking about as it pertains to a current market and its change, right? You want to be starting to think about, okay, here are the things that I need to know what's happening in our market. Is there anything that's plateauing? Are there any little bubbles out there? Is there people adapting and changing to a lot of these things that come out of the plateauing and the little bubbles? And what should I be doing to prepare for that? Okay, those are the things that you need to know. I hope this has been helpful for you. I know it's been helpful for me as I've been having these conversations with people, and I know it's helped them. And so if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below, and definitely hit me up if you want me to speak on a topic of your choice or something that you've been thinking about as it relates to real estate moving forward. I'd be more than happy to cover that. Thanks guys for watching. We'll talk to you soon.